The village of Korath was a place where silence carried weight. The people who lived there had learned to survive under the shadow of alien warlords, men and women who demanded tribute and obedience. The cracked stones of the village square held memories of fear, and every wooden door carried scratches from raids past. Life here was simple but never peaceful. On that day, the square filled with whispers. A stranger had walked into the village. He was human, and humans were rare in this region. His name was Cole, though no one asked at first. What they noticed instead was the strange rusted armor he wore. It clung to his body like a second skin, battered and scarred with age. The metal plates were dull, no shine, no polish, only marks of time and battles long past. The villagers laughed at it quietly, calling it scrap, calling him a fool for carrying such weight. But it was not Cole who drew their attention for long. At his side stood a young alien girl bound by rope. Her skin carried the faint shimmer of silver blue, and etched along her arms were markings that looked like delicate lines of fire. They were not decorations. They were symbols of her people, a sign of nobility, perhaps even royalty. The villagers knew what this meant. This girl was valuable, dangerous, and cursed with attention. The elder of the village stepped forward, his voice trembling as he addressed Cole. "You wanderer," the elder said. "We have little use for the girl. She brings trouble. The warlords search for her. They will destroy us if they know she is here." Cole said nothing. His eyes were calm, steady, like stones in a river. The elder hesitated, then pointed at Cole's armor. "But your armor, even rusted, it has weight. Trade with us. Leave the girl, and give us your armor. In return, we will grant you supplies, food, and safe passage." "That is fair." The villagers nodded quickly, eager to rid themselves of danger. The girl's eyes widened. She looked at Cole, her captor, though he had not treated her cruelly on the road. She wondered, would he truly sell her for the rags of armor he wore? The silence stretched. Then Cole's voice came low and simple. "No." The elder frowned. "You would keep her? Fool. She will bring death upon you." Cole's gaze did not shift. "You misunderstand. I will trade the armor, not for supplies, not for safe passage. For her." The words confused them. The villagers muttered among themselves. The elder laughed bitterly. "You wish to trade your armor for the girl? You would give us what little protection you have to keep a burden like her? That is madness." But Cole did not argue. He began to unfasten the straps of the armor. The sound of old metal scraping against leather filled the square. One piece at a time he removed it. Shoulder plates, chest guard, greaves. His movements were slow, deliberate, not the actions of a desperate man, but of someone who had already made peace with his decision. The villagers laughed at first, pointing at the dents, the cracks, the rust. Some children even stepped closer to poke at the discarded metal. But as Cole pulled away the last piece, something strange happened. The alien girl gasped softly. She had expected to see weakness, but instead saw strength. His body was scarred, yes, but each mark spoke of battles survived, not lost. His frame was lean, his stance steady. He carried himself not like a wanderer, but like a soldier who had long ago accepted pain as a companion. The laughter of the villagers faltered. There was no armor now, yet Cole looked no smaller. If anything, he seemed taller, heavier with presence. The air felt different, as if the space around him recognized him in a way the people did not. Cole placed the armor at the elder's feet. "Take it," he said simply. The elder bent down to touch it, only to recoil slightly. The metal was cold, unnaturally so. He shook it off quickly, embarrassed, and ordered others to carry it away. Still, a whisper spread through the crowd. "It does not feel like ordinary metal." The alien girl, still bound, stared at Cole in confusion. "Why?" she whispered, her voice carrying the strange accent of her people. "Why give away your shield? Why not give me away instead? I am worth nothing but danger." Cole looked at her. His expression did not change, but his words were clear. "Armor can be replaced, a life cannot." Her heart skipped. She had expected cruelty, but received something she did not understand: mercy. The villagers gave them supplies grudgingly, half in fear, half in curiosity. Some muttered that Cole would not survive a week without his armor. Others whispered that perhaps the rusted plates had hidden secrets they could uncover. As Cole and the girl left the square, the elder shook his head. "Fools come and go," he muttered. But even as he spoke, his hands trembled from the memory of that cold metal. On the road out of Korath, the girl walked beside Cole. She kept glancing at him, as though trying to solve a puzzle. "You gave up what little safety you had for me," she said. "But I am not free. You still hold the rope." Cole nodded slightly. "Until it is safe?" "Yes, but I will not harm you. That is not my way." She tilted her head. "Then why claim me at all?" He did not answer right away. Instead, his eyes moved toward the horizon, where clouds gathered like soldiers in formation. "Because sometimes," he said at last, "a choice must be made, and I would rather protect than abandon." The girl did not know what to say. For the first time since her capture, she felt something other than fear. She felt curiosity. Behind them, in the village, strange things began to happen. The armor, now stored in the Elder's Hall, grew heavy. 2 men struggled to lift a single piece. When one tried to wear it for amusement, it seared his skin, leaving a mark that would not fade. Panic stirred. Some whispered it was cursed. Others whispered it was alive. But Cole did not look back. He walked on, carrying nothing but his scars and his silence, while the girl walked beside him, no longer just a captive, but something else, something unknown. The wind carried the whispers forward, of a human who gave away his armor for a life, and of an alien girl who walked beside him. The story had only begun, but already the world had started to change. The road out of Korath stretched far across barren land. Dust rose in soft waves with every step, and the sun beat down without mercy. Cole walked with steady rhythm, never hurried, never slow. The alien girl followed beside him, rope still tied to her wrists, though not pulled harshly. He carried no weapon that could be seen, no shield, no armor. To her it was strange. For hours they moved in silence until finally she spoke. "You gave away your armor for me," she said, her voice quiet but steady. "But why? You could have left me behind and you would still have your shield. Now you have nothing." Cole glanced at her. His eyes were calm, like water untouched by storm. "Armor does not make a man safe. It only delays harm. But a life, if I gave you up, I would have carried that weight longer than any piece of metal." The girl lowered her eyes. No one had spoken to her like that before. Among her people, she was marked by royal blood, yet treated as a prize, not as a life with worth. Cole's words unsettled her. They came to a river by dusk. The water shimmered gold beneath the fading light. Cole untied the rope from her wrists but kept it in his hand. She rubbed at the red marks on her skin, not daring to run. She could see his strength. Even without armor, he looked like someone who would never lose a chase. As Cole gathered wood for fire, the girl watched him carefully. "Your body," she said, almost in wonder. "It is covered with scars. Are they from battles?" Cole dropped the wood and began arranging it. "Yes." "You fought many?" "Yes." "And you lived?" His eyes flicked up at her. "I am here." She said no more, but inside her chest something stirred. She had seen warriors before. She had seen them fall, bleeding and broken, beneath the spears of warlords. But this man, this human, he spoke little, and yet his presence felt heavier than 100 soldiers. When night fell, Cole sat near the fire, sharpening a simple knife he carried. The girl curled her legs close, the firelight dancing against the markings on her arms. They looked like veins of fire, glowing faintly in the dark. Cole studied them for a moment before speaking. "You carry royal marks." She stiffened. "And if I do, it means others will come for you. Warlords, soldiers, mercenaries. You are not safe." Her lips tightened. I was never safe, not even among my own. Cole nodded, saying nothing more. The night passed with only the crackle of fire and the soft song of insects. Yet even in silence, the girl found her thoughts drawn to him. Who was this man who gave away armor, who spoke little but carried much? By morning, rumors had already spread beyond Korath. The villagers, curious about the armor, had tried to test it. Men strong as oxen could not lift it. One claimed it whispered, when touched, though none believed him. Another who forced it on himself collapsed, his skin burned as if seared by fire. Fear grew. Some said the armor belonged to cursed humans of old, warriors who had destroyed entire empires. The elder tried to silence such words, but whispers are stronger than orders. Across the wastelands, bands of mercenaries heard the tale. A human had traded away his armor for a royal alien girl. A fool, they thought. But fools sometimes carried treasures without knowing. If they could capture the girl, or the armor, riches awaited. 3 days later, Cole and the girl crossed a stretch of dry plains. The sun was fierce, the land cracked and thirsty. From the ridges above, shadows moved, mercenaries waiting. The girl's steps faltered. She sensed danger. "They are here," she whispered. Cole nodded. His voice was calm. "Stay close." The mercenaries descended, 10 in number, armored in scavenged metal, weapons sharp with greed. They circled Cole and the girl, laughing at the sight of a human without armor. "Hand over the royal human," one growled. "We'll let you crawl away." Cole said nothing. Or better yet, another sneered. "Hand her and yourself. Maybe we'll find use for both." The girl tensed, certain Cole could not win against so many. But then he moved. Fast. Precise. His knife flashed once and the first mercenary fell before he could raise his blade. Cole's body twisted, striking another with his elbow, dropping him with broken ribs. His movements were not wild. They were controlled, like water flowing exactly where it must. The mercenaries shouted, rushing together. Cole met them barehanded when the knife broke, using their own momentum against them. He struck low, high, never wasting a breath. Within moments, 5 lay unconscious, 2 broken, and the last 3 fled into the dust. The girl's eyes were wide, her heart racing. She had expected him to fall, but instead she saw victory. Victory without armor, without shield. He stood among the defeated, calm as if he had done nothing more than cut bread. "You fight like no man I have ever seen," she whispered. Cole wiped blood from his hand and shook his head. "I fight because I must." She stared at him longer, her thoughts loud though her lips were silent. If this was his strength without armor, then what was he with it? That night, they camped in a broken ruin, stone walls half buried by sand. The girl leaned against the wall, still replaying the battle in her mind. "Your armor," she said at last. "It is not ordinary. The villagers speak of it even now. They say it burns those who touch it. They say it whispers." Cole looked into the fire, expression unreadable. "It is old. Too old to be just metal." He gave no reply. Silence stretched. She frowned. "Why did you give it up if it holds power?" Cole turned his eyes toward her. In the flickering light they seemed darker, endless. "Because armor is only weight. True strength must come without it." The girl hugged her knees, unsettled by his words. She wanted to believe him, but part of her wondered if he was hiding something deeper, something about himself and the rusted plates he had left behind. Far away, in the warlord city of Drenhall, word of the rusted armor reached cruel ears. The warlords gathered in council. One slammed his fist against the table. A human gave away the armor? For a girl? Fool. Another leaned forward, eyes sharp. Not fool, dangerous. If the stories are true, then that armor is not rust, it is relic. Human relic. The chamber grew silent. Every warlord knew the old tales, stories of human warriors, feared across the stars, who needed no empire to break empires. They had vanished into myth, leaving only fragments behind. If this armor was truly theirs, then the human who wore it was no simple wanderer. Find him, the leader ordered. Bring me the girl, bring me the armor. And if he resists? He bared sharp teeth. Break him. Meanwhile, Cole and the girl moved closer to the mountains. She no longer walked like a prisoner but like a companion, though the rope still hung loosely between them. She studied him when he wasn't looking, searching for answers in his silence. Cole, she said softly, tasting his name for the first time. He raised a brow. You know my name? I heard the villagers speak. He gave a small nod. And yours? She hesitated. Lyra. It was the first time she had spoken it since capture. Cole repeated it quietly as if to mark it in his memory. Lyra. The sound was simple, but it stirred something in her chest. She lowered her gaze, hiding the warmth rising in her cheeks. They walked on, the sky dark with approaching storm clouds. Cole's steps never wavered, but Lyra knew. Danger was coming, and though he carried no armor, she felt strangely certain this human would not fall. The storm rolled over the mountains like a beast of thunder. Wind howled through the cracks in the rock, and rain fell in heavy sheets. Cole and Lyra found shelter in a hollow cave carved long ago by water. The fire they lit flickered weakly against the storm's roar. Lyra sat close to the warmth, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her royal markings shimmered like faint rivers of fire, alive with every movement. Cole sat across from her, sharpening a new blade he had shaped from stone and iron scraps. His silence, as always, was steady. She studied him for a long time before speaking. The mercenaries, she whispered. They fell like grass before the blade. You fought as if you had done it 1,000 times. Who taught you? Cole's eyes lifted, but his hands did not stop working. The world, he said. Lyra frowned. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have, Cole replied. A man learns when survival demands it. Lyra leaned back against the stone. Her thoughts tangled. Her people valued power, and yet power was always tied to bloodlines, weapons, armor, or wealth. But this man had none of those. He had only himself. And still, he was enough. The storm raged through the night, and when morning came, it carried more than rain. It carried news. In the village of Korath, the elder struggled with fear. The armor, now locked inside a wooden chest, refused to behave like dead metal. No man could lift it alone. When they tried to melt it down, the flames died, snuffed out as if swallowed by the metal itself. At night, faint sounds echoed from it, low, steady, like the heartbeat of something sleeping. The villagers whispered in dread. Some said it was cursed. Others said it was alive. One woman claimed that when she passed near the chest, her knees weakened as though unseen weight pressed her down. Burn it, someone begged. We cannot, another replied. It will not burn. The elder's face grew pale with each failed attempt. At last he spoke what none wished to hear. It belongs to the human, we should not have taken it. But it was too late. Word had already traveled far beyond Korath. The warlords of Drenhall gathered once more. In the great stone hall, fire burned in iron braziers, casting shadows across cruel faces. They listened as scouts described the failed mercenary attack, the tales of a human who fought without armor and still triumphed. One warlord slammed his hand on the table. 10 armed men, defeated by one bare human. Lies. Another shook his head grimly. Not lies. Fear. The armor reacts to none but him. The mercenaries say his eyes were calm, even as he killed. That is no simple wanderer. Murmurs filled the hall. They all knew the stories, the legends of humans from centuries past. Deathworlders, they were called. Creatures born from harsh planets, too stubborn to die, too fierce to kneel. It was said that when humans wore their ancient armor, entire armies fell. The leader of the warlords leaned forward, his voice sharp. If this man is truly of that blood, then he cannot be allowed to walk free. He must be broken before his legend grows. Another warlord growled, And the girl? She carries royal marks. Her capture alone could buy us loyalty from rival clans. The leader smiled coldly. Then we hunt both. Send our fastest riders. Send our fiercest hunters. Let the world know. No, human and no royal girl can defy us. Back in the mountains, Cole and Lyra made their way through narrow passes. Snow clung to the higher peaks, though the valleys below still held dry grass and stone. The path was treacherous, but Cole moved. With the calm of one who trusted his steps, Lyra followed, though her eyes often searched the horizon. She finally asked what had burned in her mind since Korath. Cole, the armor. It was not normal. The villagers say it cannot be lifted. They say it hurts those who try. Why? He did not answer at once. His steps crunched over stone. At last he said, "Because it was never meant for them." Lyra blinked. Then who? Cole's gaze shifted to the distant peaks. For humans. For those who were trained to carry more than just metal. Lyra shivered, though the wind was not cold. And you are one of them? He did not reply, but his silence told her enough. By evening, they reached a plateau where the land opened wide. But waiting there were riders, mercenaries on stolen beasts, their weapons glinting in the last light of day. They had tracked Cole's path, guided by greed and whispers. Lyra's breath caught. They have found us. Cole studied the riders. There were more than 20. His hand tightened on the rope loosely tied to her wrist, then gently released it. Stay behind me. The leader of the mercenaries raised his spear. Human, you walk without armor, without shield. Surrender the girl, and we may spare your life. Cole's voice was calm, steady. No. The riders roared in laughter. They spurred their beasts forward, charging in a storm of steel and dust. Lyra's heart raced. She expected Cole to run, but he stood firm. When the first rider came close, Cole sidestepped, his knife flashing. The beast stumbled, the rider fell, and in one swift motion Cole dragged the man down. Chaos erupted. Cole moved through it like a shadow with weight. He struck riders from their mounts, turned spears aside, and used the dust as cover. His movements were not of one man fighting wildly. They were of one who had studied war, who knew every angle of attack, every weak spot of bone and armor. Lyra could hardly breathe as she watched. She had seen armies fight before. She had seen soldiers die in droves. But never had she seen a single man move like this, carving through trained killers, with nothing but precision and will. One rider managed to grab Lyra by the arm, yanking her away. She screamed, but Cole was already there. He slammed the man to the ground with force that cracked stone. When it ended, dust hung heavy in the air. The plateau was littered with groaning men and broken weapons. Of the 20 riders, none stood against him. Cole exhaled once, steady, as though it had been nothing more than work. Lyra stared at him, her chest tight. You are not just a man. He looked at her, his face unreadable. I am only human. But in her heart, she knew that was not true. Far away, in the city of Drenhall, a messenger rushed into the warlord hall. His face was pale, his voice shaking. The riders of the mercenaries, they are broken, not one could defeat him. The human stands and the girl remains at his side. The warlords grew silent. Even the proudest among them felt unease creep into their bones. At last the leader spoke, his voice a low growl. Then he is not to be taken lightly. This is no wanderer. This is the return of the old blood. He stood, his shadow long against the fire. Gather the armies, bring forth every weapon we have. If he rises, then we will rise against him. Before the people kneel, we must break him. But outside the hall, among the common people of Drenhall, whispers spread faster than orders. Whispers of a human without armor who defeated armies. Whispers of rusted metal that only he could wear. Whispers that the old legends were no longer legend at all, and for the first time in generations, the warlords felt something they had long forgotten. Fear. The night after the battle on the plateau was quiet, almost too quiet. Cole and Lyra sat beside a small fire hidden in a shallow valley. The mercenaries who survived had fled into the wastelands, but their fear would carry the tale farther than any blade. Cole knew it and Lyra felt it. She sat across from him, staring into the flames. Her royal markings glowed softly, their shimmer reflecting her restless thoughts. "Cole," she whispered, "your strength, it is not normal. You fight as if you were born for it, and the armor, why does it obey only you?" Cole sharpened his blade in silence, his face calm, but she pressed on. "You could have kept the armor. You could have ruled these lands already. Yet you gave it away for me. Why?" He looked at her at last, his eyes steady. "Because armor does not decide who I am, and because you were not meant to be a trade." Lyra's lips parted, but no words came. She had lived her whole life as an object of power, wanted by clans, claimed by warlords, marked by blood. And yet this human, who had nothing, spoke as though she was worth everything. The fire crackled. The storm of silence between them was heavier than thunder. By dawn, their journey brought them near the edge of Drenhal's reach. But already riders were waiting. This time they did not come with scattered weapons or greedy laughter. They came in formation, banners flying, war drums echoing against the cliffs. An entire host of soldiers stretched across the plain, shields gleaming, spears rising like a forest of iron. At their front stood the warlords themselves, 7 in total, cloaked in furs and steel, their eyes cruel and proud. Behind them, dragged in chains, came the rusted armor of Cole. Lyra gasped when she saw it. The villagers must have surrendered it to the warlords out of fear. Now it hung heavy on a wooden cart, bound by thick chains, guarded as though it were treasure. Even from a distance she could sense its weight, as if the earth itself strained beneath it. One warlord stepped forward, his voice booming. "Human, you shame your kind. You stand with no armor, no shield, and yet you dare to defy us. Kneel, surrender the girl, and perhaps we will grant you mercy." The soldiers shouted, slamming their spears against the ground in rhythm. The sound rolled like thunder across the plain. Lyra trembled. She looked at Cole. His face was still, calm as stone. He walked forward slowly until his voice could be heard. "I will not kneel. The girl is under my protection." The warlord sneered. "Foolish human, do you not see? We hold your armor. Without it, you are nothing." Cole's eyes moved to the cart. The rusted plates lay chained, silent, waiting. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke, his voice low but carrying across the plain. "You are wrong. I am not nothing without it. But with it," he stepped closer. The soldiers tensed. "With it," Cole said, "I am what your kind fears most." The warlords laughed, but the laughter was thin, uneasy. Then Cole lifted his hand. The air grew, heavy. The chains binding the armor rattled, metal grinding as though stirred by unseen force. The soldiers gasped as the armor shook, then rose from the cart on its own. One piece at a time it lifted into the air as if answering a call. The first plate locked onto Cole's arm with a ringing sound that echoed like a bell. Then another, and another. The chest plate slammed against his torso, runes of light burning across its surface. The greaves sealed onto his legs. The helmet crowned his head, its visor flaring with lines of fire. The ground trembled. Dust rose in waves. The soldiers who had mocked him now stumbled backward, their knees weak. Lyra's eyes widened, her heart racing. She had thought him strong before. But now he was something else entirely. The warlords no longer laughed. One whispered, fear twisting his voice. "It is true. The old blood lives." The soldiers tried to hold their formation, but when Cole stepped forward, the weight of his presence crushed their will. Each step rang like thunder. His voice carried with power that made even the banners quiver. "You call yourselves rulers," he said, "but you rule by fear. I do not seek your crowns nor your lands. I seek only to protect what is mine." He turned slightly, his eyes burning through the helmet toward Lyra. "And she is mine to protect." The warlords shouted, trying to rally their men. One roared, "Do not kneel, attack." But even as they shouted, many soldiers faltered. Some dropped their weapons. Some fell to their knees without knowing why. The armor carried a weight beyond steel. It carried history, memory, and terror. Still, one warlord dared to charge, his blade high. He swung at Cole with all his strength. Cole caught the blade with one hand. The steel shattered on contact. With a single strike, he sent the warlord crashing to the ground, broken and still. Silence fell across the field. Then, slowly, one soldier knelt. Another followed. Then another. Within moments, the entire army bent the knee. Only the warlords remained standing, their pride cracking under the weight of what they saw. Lyra stood frozen, her chest tight. She had lived in fear of warlords her whole life. She had seen armies rise and fall, but never had she seen them kneel. Not to her. People, not to her king, but to one human. The leader of the warlords spat in rage. "You think this makes you master? You think we will bow to your kind again? Never." Cole looked at him, calm even now. "You already have." The warlord roared and rushed, but his own men held him back, not to protect him, but because they themselves no longer wished to fight. Fear had rooted too deep. Cole lowered his hand. "Leave. Take your pride, take your greed, and scatter. If you remain, I will not spare you again." The warlords, broken by the sight of their own armies kneeling, fled into the dust. When it was done, Cole stood alone in the plain, armored in the relic that had once been mocked as rust. Soldiers all around kept their heads bowed. Lyra walked slowly toward him, her heart pounding, her breath uneven. "You," she whispered, "you are not only human. You are legend." Cole removed the helmet. His face, though scarred, was calm, his eyes steady as always. "I am only what I must be." Lyra felt her knees weaken. For the first time she understood why the world whispered of humans with fear. Not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, but because of their will. A human in rusted armor had made armies kneel, and she, the alien girl once treated as a prize, now stood at his side, no longer bound by rope, but by choice. The revelation was clear. The warlords were not the masters of this land anymore. The Kizidar return of the old blood had begun, and nothing would stop it. The battlefield was silent. Dust still hung in the air where banners had fallen and spears lay broken. The soldiers of the warlords stayed kneeling, their eyes lowered, afraid to look at the human who now stood armored in relics that glowed faintly, with living power. Cole stood unmoving, helmet under his arm, his face calm, though his presence was heavier than stone. Lyra moved closer, her royal markings shimmering as if they answered the armor's strange energy. She looked at him with a mix of awe and confusion. "You did not just win a battle," she whispered. "You ended their rule." Cole's gaze swept across the bowed soldiers. "No, I only reminded them who they kneeled to." His words carried weight, not of arrogance, but of truth. The armor hummed faintly, alive with echoes of the past, and the men who once mocked him now trembled in fear. Far across the land, word spread like fire in dry grass. Messengers raced, carrying tales of the human who had made armies kneel. In villages, people whispered his name with hope. In cities, the warlords shuttered their halls, afraid of rebellion. And in distant thrones, rulers who had long ignored humans now wondered if the old legends had awakened again. The warlords who fled Drenhall met in secret. Their pride was cracked, their anger burning, but fear clung to them like chains. "Is only one man," one snarled. "One man," another replied, "who carries the armor of old. One man who broke armies. You saw it with your own eyes. Our soldiers bent their knees before he lifted his hand. They argued. But beneath their words was truth they did not wish to admit. The age of their rule was ending. If one human could command such power, more could follow." Back at the battlefield, Cole addressed the kneeling soldiers. His voice was steady, but each word felt like a command. "You kneel because you remember," he said. "You remember the old stories of my kind. You remember that humans do not bow to empires. I do not seek to rule you, but know this. So long as I walk this world, no warlord will command you through fear. The soldiers exchanged uneasy looks. None dared rise. None dared challenge. Lyra stepped forward then, her voice clear though her heart raced. "He speaks truth. The warlord sought to trade me as if I were a coin. They sought to chain him as if he were nothing, yet today you see what is greater than crowns or armies. Stand with him, and you will be free." Her words echoed strangely, as if carried by the markings that glowed along her arms. The soldiers lifted their heads, some with hope, some with fear. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt power not from her bloodline but from choice, and she chose to stand beside Cole. The following days were heavy with movement. The soldiers who had knelt refused to return to their warlords. Instead, they camped near Cole, unsure whether they were his army or his followers. Villagers arrived bringing food and offerings, calling him protector. Others begged for his guidance. Cole accepted little, speaking few words. He built no throne, no crown, no banner. He walked among them as he always had, quiet, steady, scarred but unbroken. Lyra watched him closely. Each night by the fire she studied his face. He carried a weight that was greater than the armor itself. She wanted to ask why he fought, why he carried scars, why he chose her life over his armor. But each time, she held the questions, sensing that his silence was an answer on its own. But peace did not last. The warlords, desperate to reclaim control, gathered their last allies. From across the region, they summoned beasts bred for war, machines forged in secret, weapons older than memory. They swore that if they could not rule by fear, they would rule by destruction. One night, as Cole and Lyra rested on the edge of the camp, scouts returned with news. "They come," the scout said, breathless. "An army greater than before. Warlords united. They march to end you." The camp stirred with panic. Men who had once knelt now feared again. Some wished to flee. Others begged Cole to lead them into battle. Lyra looked at him, her heart tight. "Cole, will you fight them, all?" He studied the horizon where distant fires burned. His hand brushed the armor at his chest. "If I must." The final battle came at dawn. Across the plains, the warlord's host stretched far, banners black against the morning light. War machines rumbled, beasts roared, and weapons glinted. Cole walked forward, armor glowing faintly, each step carrying the weight of history. At his side, Lyra walked without rope, her markings burning brighter than ever. The armies clashed with sound like thunder, but where Cole walked, the battle bent. His armor turned blades aside, his strength broke machines, his will shattered. Beasts. He moved like storm and stone, unshaken, unstoppable. Lyra stayed close, her presence steady. At times, her markings flared, forming a shield of light that turned arrows away. Together they stood, not as master and captive, but as allies bound by choice. When one of the warlords tried to strike her, Cole's fury rose like fire. He cut through the enemy with a power that silenced the field. His voice roared through the chaos. "She is under my protection." The words carried farther than weapons. Soldiers stopped fighting. They looked not at their masters, but at him. One by one they lowered their blades. The warlords screamed in rage, but their armies no longer obeyed. Fear had broken, replaced by something stronger. Belief. At last the leader of the warlords stood alone, his crown bent, his blade shaking. He glared at Cole with hatred. "You think you are king? You think your kind can rise again?" Cole's eyes were steady. "I am no king, I am human, and that is enough." The last warlord dropped his blade, his pride crushed, and fled into the dust. The plain grew silent. The battle was done. As the sun rose, thousands of soldiers fell to their knees, not from fear but from choice. They bent their heads not to a warlord, not to a crown, but to a man in rusted armor who had reminded the world what humanity meant. Lyra stepped closer, her voice trembling, but clear. "They kneel to you." Cole shook his head. No, they kneel to what was always inside them, the will to be free. Lyra's eyes softened. And you are the one who showed them. For a long moment they stood together, the plain stretching wide and endless, the world itself shifting beneath their feet. In the days that followed, the warlords scattered. Villages rose against their chains. The story spread farther, carried by every tongue. A human who gave away his armor for a life, who fought without shield, who donned relics and made worlds kneel. Cole walked on, never claiming throne or banner. Lyra walked with him, no longer captive, no longer prize, but chosen, companion. Together they carried a truth stronger than steel. That true strength is not in armor or crowns, but in the will to protect, to stand, and to never kneel to fear. And so the legend lived. Not of rusted metal, but of a human heart that made even kings bow.